Did you know that your environment, lifestyle, and maybe even your family history could play a role in the development of IBD? Well, in today's episode, we're going to dive into the major risk factors that could contribute to inflammatory bowel disease. So, whether you're managing your symptoms or looking to prevent IBD altogether, then stay tuned because this episode is going to arm you with the knowledge you need to take control of your gut health. Hey friend, welcome to Gut Fix. Are you ready to finally get rid of those debilitating digestive symptoms? Do you catch yourself staying up late Googling things like, what can I eat? Or how do I stop a flare? Or maybe you're just lying awake wondering, how did this ever happen to me? I'm Wendy, and I've been exactly where you are, desperately searching for answers, but determined to find natural solutions. And like you, I was overwhelmed by all the conflicting information out there and unsure of what might really work for me. And so now in this podcast, I'm here to share with you what I've learned, how to listen to your body's signals, and uncover the common mistakes that might be standing in the way of your healing. So grab your favorite drink, pop in your earbuds, and let's dive into your health transformation together. Hey, and welcome back to another episode of Gut Fix. So today I wanted to talk about what are the risk factors for IBD and how you can reduce your chances of developing it or experiencing the symptoms that come from it. And so inflammatory bowel disease includes mainly conditions, and everybody, I don't say everybody, but most people know it as Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis. And IBD has seen a notable increase in its, in prevalence and in cases over the last recent decades. And right here in the United States, current estimates suggest that there are between 2.4 and 3.1 million individuals affected by IBD. And that comes directly from the CDC. The rise in cases is not limited to adults, and globally, the rise in IBD amongst children and adolescents has actually tripled in the last 20 years. And there's a lot of factors that we're going to cover of why that could be and what you can do to, help alleviate that. But these trends just kind of underscore the growing public health challenge that is posed by IBD. And it just puts a big spotlight on the need for continued research and ways to manage the condition effectively. And so, first of all, what is a risk factor and what does it cause? Because they're two different things. A cause basically is why the disease actually happens in the first place. And a risk factor is what makes it more likely to happen. And, there's several factors that can make it more likely. Considering that no matter who you talk to, nobody can really tell you what the cause is, right? And of course, everybody's going to be different anyway. Every person that is affected by anything, any disease, it's going to be different of what led up to it, right? And so, genetics do play a part in it. It plays a part in just about everything. And what I will say is that, only 5 to 20% of IBD patients have a family member with the disease. And so I can tell you in my particular case, I did not have anybody as far back as we could go that was affected with IBD or was afflicted with IBD. So we could not go back that far. And so basically genetics didn't, as far as I'm concerned, didn't play a role in that. The next thing is lifestyle, right? And so urban living, so IBD is significantly more prevalent in industrialized and urban areas when you compare it to the rural areas. And there's a lot of different reasons for that, but one of the bigger things is air pollution. And so when you are exposed to that air pollution constantly, it can be linked to inflammation and disruption in your gut microbiome. And so it's not maybe just, it's never just one thing, or it's never just one factor. It's when things accumulate, and especially if you're somebody who doesn't detox well, there's something that's maybe preventing you from detoxing, then these things continue to build up, and that's when they wreak havoc, right? And so pollutants can also enter the digestive system when you inhale them or when you ingest them, right? And that could be a potential immune response. Also, even you have reduced exposure to those natural microbes. So, urban living, when, people who live in urban areas often are limited to their exposure to the diverse environmental microbes, which are really essential for developing a robust and balanced immune system. And, sedentary lifestyle also. So urban lifestyles often involve a lot less activity, right? And that can negatively impact, not only gut motility, but also microbiome health. And stress levels are typically higher in urban areas. And we know that chronic stress can exacerbate inflammation and compromise your gut health at the same time. And then you've got processed foods and antibiotic use. And so, when you're when you're living in industrialized regions, they have greater access to very highly processed foods, which tend to be low in fiber, high in sugar, preservatives, and those unhealthy fats. And these foods can, damage the gut lining and promote that dysbiosis or the imbalance in your gut bacteria. And then you've got the increased use of antibiotics in both healthcare and agriculture, right? And so that's why it's so important to eat, clean, not only pesticide-free organic fruits and vegetables, but also the meats that we eat, right? Because that can disrupt the gut microbiome, which is further going to contribute to that inflammation. And so then we've got the Western diet, which is very high in processed foods and sugars. And when you have that, that's a healthy, you add in the fact that you have those unhealthy fats, that again is just going to increase that inflammation. And that can lead to, a breakdown in the gut barrier or leaky gut, which is harmful, which allows those harmful substances to enter that bloodstream and exacerbate your immune responses. So, there's a lot to be said for diet and lifestyle as being factors, and I wouldn't call them causes necessarily, more like risk factors, right? And stress also can really, really, really wreak a havoc on the whole digestive system and make it so much more vulnerable. The immune system dysregulation also, in IBD, the immune system, what happens is that it mistakenly attacks the gut lining, thinking that there is a foreign, something that doesn't belong there, right? That it shouldn't be there, leading to that chronic inflammation. Now, autoimmune disorders, those happen to run in families. So that could be, like my father had rheumatoid arthritis. That is an autoimmune. It isn't IBD, but it is an autoimmune. And that could make you a little bit more predisposed to conditions like IBD. So all the more reason to really clean up your lifestyle, your diet, and just really focus on, managing your stress. And so, are you at risk? So some of the things that you can know that if you might be feeling or might be experiencing or developing IBD, for me, I always knew, I haven't had a flare in many, 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 many years, but I always knew that when I would be exhausted. It was like I was run down all of the time, and I just couldn't seem to get to feeling better. And then the stomach issues started. It was the bloating, it was the gas, and then it was the it was the diarrhea, and it kind of compounded. So some of those things that you can, those could be early signs. The only way to really know is to have some functional testing done, like a GI map, for example. That can see where things are maybe breaking down in the gut. That can see that, along with a test to check the mucosal barrier. That can also lead and tell you if you're headed down that path or not. And not always with those symptoms is that what it's going to lead to. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's what it is, but it could very well be that you could be headed for an IBD. And, so reducing the risk for getting IBD or lowering your risk, let's just say, is you really want to focus on an anti-inflammatory diet and a gut-friendly foods. So you want your probiotics, your prebiotic foods, your fibers, those kinds of things, and really focusing on, once again, whole foods, not the processed foods, not the prepared foods, limiting your eating out, limiting alcohol, things like that. And avoiding unnecessary antibiotics. Now, they are a part, they have a place, we need them. I'm not saying never take an antibiotic. Obviously that would be irresponsible, and you would discuss that with your physician. But, just unnecessarily taking antibiotics, just be very mindful of it, because it just does disrupt that whole gut microbiome. And then you really want to be managing your stress with, mindfulness, with exercise. If you're feeling run down though, really kind of limit it. Maybe just going for a walk, maybe doing some stretching, some yoga, that kind of a thing. And you really want to make sure that you are constantly staying on top of it. If you have those risk factors, you want to make sure that you're staying on top of it and just getting checked and making sure that you are keeping on top of it. And so, like I said, I waited a little bit too long. I didn't know that I had any of these risk factors. I really wasn't paying that much attention. I was too busy living my life, right? I was running the marathons. I was doing the real estate. I was heavily into my career. I was having a good time. And doing what I thought was right. I mean, I was eating well. But I waited way too long and ignored, I ignored symptoms, and just kind of brushed it off. So just being really kind of getting in tune with your body, if you will, and just really kind of knowing, that can help you to mitigate anything and cut it off at the knees before it happens. Right. And so, once again, genetics, environment, your diet, your gut microbiome, immune factors, those are all risk factors, if you will. But you don't have to go down the path like I did. So hopefully you got some value out of this. And if you did and you like the show, please like and share the show with somebody that you think might, benefit from it. And also feel free to download my free IBD on the go guide. It's got a little bit more depth into diet recommendations, into exercise recommendations, into some supplements that you can take. And so, feel free to download that. The link is in the show notes, but also you can go to bit.ly/IBD guide. That's bit.ly/IBD guide. And until next week, stay happy and stay healthy. Hey friend, I hope today's episode brought you some real value. If it did, would you take just 30 seconds to share it with a friend who might be struggling to get her gut in check? And if you're feeling extra generous, leave me a review on Apple. It absolutely lights me up knowing that this podcast is making a difference for you. All right, it's time for me to grab my protein shake and get my gut happy. I'll see you back here next Tuesday for another episode of Gut Fix. And until then, stay happy and stay healthy.